Hello and welcome to this episode of the Online Course Creator Show. I'm so happy today to have Chloe Johnson here from the Marketing Cafe, who's going to share with you all about her experience of learning the launching system and working with me. Welcome, Chloe.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's so good to have you here, and I can't wait to dive into this episode. I thought the best place to start would be to hear a little bit about your business, your background, and what you do.
Yeah, so I am the owner of the Marketing Cafe, and I help e-commerce owners grow their stores to at least 10K to 20, 50K months. And I do that through helping them ditch the overwhelm that so many e-commerce owners have and get real clarity and make them feel empowered and in control of their business so that they can, have the freedom and the flexibility that so many e-commerce owners get into.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like that's very needed. So what is the course or the product that you sell using launching?
So I have a course called the e-commerce course, very creative, but that's because it's the only e-commerce course that people need. And my background is I was an e-commerce owner myself, and I had an e-commerce store that I started from a side hustle status. So it was started in my bedroom, and I really hustled. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and it wasn't an easy journey. And I eventually sort of landed on a bit of a framework, or I cracked the code, if you like, in e-commerce. And once I did that, I managed to scale my online store to over $1 million. And I did that while I was working part-time, having a family. And I've created this e-commerce course so that e-commerce owners don't have to do that hard slog that I did, and that they can actually fast track their way to higher revenue without needing to make all the same mistakes that I did, or without trying to figure it out, because I've done that and I've packaged up this e-commerce course in order to help them fast track that growth, essentially.
That's awesome. So basically you're helping them cut the length of the process and eliminate all of the mistakes that they could potentially spend years on because you went through that process, and because of that they don't have to.
Yeah, exactly. It's an overwhelming space. There's a lot of gurus that I've got in inverted commas there out there that are trying to tell you what you should be doing. And at the end of the day, it's really about understanding what you need to be doing for your specific business and getting real clarity on that, and not trying to do absolutely everything out there, because that's how you get stuck, and that's how you don't move the needle in your business, or you do it very slowly. And so I am helping people pass all of that and just get to the good stuff.
Yeah, I love that. So what is the transformation for your course when you're selling it? Like, what's the thing that they're going to get as the outcome from signing up?
So the course is for people who are already established in e-commerce, and they might be doing around that sort of 2K to 5K, maybe even 8K a month. This course is designed to help them get to at least 10K months and beyond. But I think even more importantly, it's about doing that without the overwhelm and getting real clarity. Because when we have clarity and when we're confident in what we're doing, then we can just double down on what's working, and things become easier, and we see that success quicker. And the quicker we see that success, the more money we're making, essentially. So I think ditching the overwhelm is a really important part. And that's why I've taken my learnings over the last sort of 6 to 7 years in e-commerce and 15 years as a marketer. So digital marketing was my background before that, and created a framework or a system that's really easy to follow. So it's about what you need, but it's also about what you don't need, and leave behind all of the stuff that you just really don't need, that's cluttering your mind and your business in order to grow.
Yeah, I love that. That it's, just as much about giving them what they need, but telling them what they can ditch, what they don't need at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
So one thing I love about your course, actually, and you've touched on this already, is that you called it the e-commerce course. Like, you didn't spend months, years even, which I've seen people do, coming up with the most interesting, creative and clever name. I think when we started working together, you didn't know that it was going to be called that. And then we mapped out the product, and then you were like, I'm just going to call it the e-commerce course, and if I need to change it later, I will.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, I think that's a really good example of just going for it. Like, coming up with the most creative name is not going to mean success, and you saw that and you just went for it. So that's really cool.
Yeah. And I think as well, having a marketing background, I was thinking about SEO and being found on search. And, I'm all about being clear over being clever, because if we are clear in our marketing, people are going to understand that. If they have to try and figure out your creative title, then that's going to be a barrier to them understanding what you're all about.
Yeah. So true. We're on the same page there for sure. Actually, I just realized that you took my SEO course, didn't you, years ago?
Yeah, it's how I came across you. So
yeah.
I did your SEO course when I first had my e-commerce course, and I've just been like a quiet little fan in the background of you for all that time.
Yeah.
And when I saw that you moved from SEO to course creation, I was like, still following you, but I was like, she's not that relevant to me anymore. And then, never say never, I ended up creating my own course, and I came crawling back to you and I was like, Lou, please help me.
Oh my God, that's so cool. I love that. And yeah, that's just a really interesting idea around like pivoting, because obviously that was a huge pivot for me. But then there are always going to be people from your old audience who, want to continue to work with you in some way in the future. That's such a funny story.
Yeah. And I think like, what was that, 10 years, maybe or like a 6 year or something. And I think that's, you were building trust without even knowing it along that whole process.
Yeah.
And there was something that made me, I think you even put up a post at one stage on the SEO group that was like, this is what I'm doing. Feel free to opt out. Like, I won't be offended if you opt out if it's not for you anymore. And there was just something that made me want to stay part of your world. So I'm glad I did.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I love that. So when you worked with me in the course space, you did action takers, but you'd also done a VIP strategy day with me as well. So before you did either of those things and you were looking at creating a course, you'd obviously sold your business and starting up a new business where you were doing done for you marketing work for e-commerce, and you wanted to actually walk me through the process of deciding that you wanted to create a course.
I always knew that I wanted to create a course. So I sold my e-commerce business in 23 to have my second child. And I knew that my next step was going to be in some kind of education for other e-commerce owners, because that's what I craved and needed and didn't have while I was building my business. And so I knew that I wanted a course, but I had no idea how to do it. I'm an e-commerce expert, not a course expert. And so I naturally fell back into done for you services. So if I didn't know how to do the course, then I know how to actually do the e-commerce work. So I ended up creating a business where I do the e-commerce work for clients. But in the background, I always wanted this course because I knew that I'd be able to serve more people in the same amount of time and help more e-commerce owners. But what was holding me back was, I guess, two things. One, I had no idea how to actually create a course, write down, I knew the knowledge of e-commerce, what I needed to teach, but I didn't know how you delivered that course, the platform, all of that kind of tech stuff that goes on. And then secondly, I didn't know how to sell the course, because selling a course is so different to selling e-commerce products. So even as a experienced marketer, I knew that it was a field that I wasn't very well equipped to sort of navigate on my own. And I just kept putting it in the too hard basket. And before I knew it, a year had passed, or almost a year, and I still hadn't made any progress on the course. And all my time was being taken up with one-on-one clients.
Yeah. Yeah. So you I think that's really common as well, to think I'm going to do the course, and then all of a sudden it's 3 or 6 months later and you haven't taken any action.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to, I really wanted to. And every time I sat down to do the coursework, I would either see an email that a client needed something, or I would just sort of stare at my screen and not really know what needed to be done first, what order. I had no system or plan. I felt like I knew it because that's my area of expertise, is strategy and planning and marketing, but it just didn't happen for the course. So that's why I came to you, because I really needed that guidance, but I think I also needed the accountability side of it as well.
Yeah. Did you have any hesitations before deciding to work with me?
None to do with you. I knew that you were the right fit, but the hesitation for me was time. Like, I was a mum to 2 children, one, still a newborn. And actually, when we did the VIP day, I had my baby right next to me while we were doing it. And you were so patient as he was
so
demanding
good,
my attention. And so I just sort of thought, is now the right time to be doing this? But I knew deep down that it was, because that's just the way that I'm wired. I needed it to stimulate me. And time is just a bit of a cop-out, really. I had to get it done. Otherwise, it just would have kept being the same way for the 2 years.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, is there ever a perfect time?
Yeah. And I actually probably learned that from you, to be fair. That time is what you make of it, really. And sometimes people like myself work better when the time isn't right, because that's actually going to get it done.
Yeah.
But if I wait till the perfect time, then it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Like, I just had to take a reality check with myself on that one.
Yeah. I think we had a conversation around, having a newborn baby, and, a rational mind would say that is not the time to take on a new project. But then we talked about how when my baby was like little, I used to have to be stuck on the couch for hours and hours and hours feeding the baby. So I needed something to stimulate my mind. And I was actually doing like university papers at the same time. Obviously, that was a very long time ago. But, I think you do need your mind stimulated when you are at home stuck in those situations, even though you're super busy. It's a kind of different type of busy as well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I created my e-commerce business on maternity leave because I had the capacity to do that, because the baby slept so much in the early days, not at night, but in the daytime. And it's just what lights me up. It's what kept me sane. I love it. I love creating new businesses, and I love doing that for myself. So, it was never a job. It's never been a job for me. Every minute I get to work on my business, I love it.
Yeah, you've always been like super passionate about business, which I love. I actually used to buy gifts for my clients off you as well. So, yeah, I've always followed your business journey as well.
Yeah, we're just meant to be, Lou.
Yeah. Dream client. So you talked a little bit about, you're obviously a marketer, you work in e-commerce, you've got a strategic brain on you already. But I do recall when we were in Action Takers and I was walking you through the system, you were constantly like, oh my God, I can't believe how this works. So What shifted for you once you learned the launching system? What were your biggest takeaways from learning the system?
I mean, there were so many. I think there's a matter of you don't know what you don't know. And it wasn't until I got into your system and you had all of these amazing templates and resources that were sort of like plug and play style that I was like, I would never have done this on my own. I would never have known that this was a good system or a good path to go down. I would have done it a lot in a different way, and it would have been slower and clunkier. So I think, though, probably 2 aha moments is the mindset. Like, your mindset going into launching is massive, and I never thought that I was sort of a mindset person, but I definitely am, and this has made me realize that you need to get out of your own head when you are launching. That's sort of one thing to do with the system. I also realize now that launching isn't just about selling the course. It's also about like growing your audience in that stage and growing your list. And that launching is it's so much more than just selling the course, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like you're building your brand, you're building your visibility in the market, and you're building your email list and social media following all at the same time, really, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I didn't realize that until I actually got into it, and that I loved it. I'm clearly someone that works off pressure, and launching during the launch phase, that's actually when I'm at my best. Like, I didn't think that that's what I would enjoy, but I really loved like the conversations that I'm having with people and the energy that I get. And I like, it's a little bit like going to the gym. Like, the thought of launching isn't that appealing to me. And then when I'm actually in the launch, I'm vibing off it. It's high energy, love the conversations, and I feel like I'm in my element.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a huge part of launching is you do actually get like an adrenaline rush, and it can be really fulfilling. And like you say, that feeling of momentum as you're going through the process, it can actually make you quite fulfilled in a way.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm not sure if that answered your question around the system. I sort of jumped straight to the launching.
No, I definitely think, are there any specific parts of the launching that took you by surprise, or maybe it was like a key part that made it all slot into place for you?
I think it was just knowing that there is a system or a framework to launching. Like it's definitely not something that you can wing, and having a really good system in place, it's almost like a mathematical formula. Like, this plus this is going to equal this. And once you have that system all laid out, it makes things a heck of a lot easier. I mean, on a really granular level, one of the things that I was like, about, which is interesting because I'm a marketer, was nailing your sales page. And once I focused on my sales page and I really spent time on that, like I took that quite seriously with your help, I was able to dissect that sales page and use the messaging in my emails, in my social media, in the actual, webinar, in the course product page. It was almost like it made life so much easier if I just really focused on that landing page.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of an aha moment in the whole launching system. I underestimated how important that page was, not only to sell the course and show people why they needed the course, but to help with my own marketing and be able to repurpose that content across different platforms as well.
Yeah, I love that. In the Moneymakers program, which I'm launching at the moment, one of the things we actually do is work on the sales page straight away, because I feel like getting your mind around into the state, I guess, where you can create the sales page gives you so much clarity that you can then, like you say, reuse that content all throughout your launch. But if you never spend the time on your sales page, you don't have the clarity around your own offer, and then it's actually really, really hard to sell it.
Yeah, 100%. If you're not clear on your offer, how is anyone else going to be clear on it?
Yeah, exactly. I love that. That's really interesting to hear that. So let's walk through that first launch that you did when you were working with me. So you are someone who I actually talk about quite a lot to other people, because something that blew me away about your launch is you actually had a really tiny audience. And one of the things that I see holding people back from launching is, my audience isn't big enough yet, but that didn't stop you. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was new to this business. I had a bigger audience with my e-commerce business. I had probably less than 300 people on social media and my email combined. So we're talking a tiny audience. I guess a mindset thing. I just didn't let that hold me back. I knew that what I had to offer was really good. And I knew through working with you that the launch process was going to help grow that audience anyway. But it was sort of not about quantity. It was more about quality and the people who I was attracting. And it almost made it easier having a small audience because I was high touch with them. So I was able to communicate with them, in DMs and actually reach out to them and get to know my audience on a really deeper level than what I would have if I had a 20,000K following. And I also really leaned into, I guess, the people who were in my audience were people that knew my story, knew my business growth story and what I had done in my e-commerce store. So it was just a really personalized way of being able to connect with my audience. Definitely quantity over quality. The other way around. Quality over quantity.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things that you did really well was using your authority that you had from your previous business. Even though, this is not your current business, you really spoke about your story. You shared your success story from your last business. And I think that is the thing that made a really big difference, because I see a lot of people just trying to educate and prove to people through that, through that method that they know lots of how-to content. Whereas you were like, this is my story. This is what I've achieved. And here's how I can help you.
Yeah. It's my point of difference. No one cares about education anymore because we've got ChatGPT. You can go and find out that information in ChatGPT if you really want to. But people do want to connect with those who have gone before them, those who have already done it. And I am not someone who's just sort of regurgitating and spitting out theory. I've actually walked the path of these e-commerce owners. I've been where they are. And so I really leaned into that in my marketing messages because I knew that that is what my audience were after. They wanted a trusted source and they wanted credibility that this person knew what they were really talking about and not just sort of scraping things off the internet.
Yeah. And you really owned your past success, which I think is something that a lot of like women especially shy away from owning. This is what I've done. This is what I've achieved. And we did speak about it a couple of times. You know, I remember just saying you've just got to show up with certainty and conviction in what you've done because it's amazing. And I wish more people did that, you know, so you did a really good job of that. And it definitely worked.
I did feel uncomfortable though. You know, like there was definitely moments where I felt like it was gloating or showing off, but I just had to, again, a mindset thing. This is what I mean. Like mindset is massive when it comes to launching because I needed to get out of my own head around thinking that because it is actually what people want. They want an inspirational story. They want to know what your results are. They want to know what you've achieved. One, because it proves that their investment in you is going to be worth it. But two, it's because if she can do it, I can do it kind of thing. You know, it's inspiring. I'm no one special. And that is, I knew that that's what people were looking for. And I felt like if I didn't share that story, I was doing that a disservice. I was doing those people a disservice by not showing them what they would be able to achieve themselves.
Exactly. And imagine if you don't show up, then those people can't buy your knowledge, which is your course, and then they just stay where they are or even go backwards. So I think that's a really important point. And yeah, definitely something you did really well. And you did a great job of stepping through the discomfort because it is uncomfortable to like stand up and promote yourself in any way, or even with such conviction say, this is what I've achieved. And for many people, that's like an unbelievable achievement, you know? So I just think that's so well done to you to sharing that. And there's so many people that you've inspired and are now benefiting and growing their own businesses as a result of that. So it's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
So let's talk about the results of that first launch. What were some of the results that you achieved and how did you walk away from that launch feeling?
So the launch process that I did was a webinar. So I did a live webinar, which I did not want to do, but I knew again that it was something that I really needed to just rip the Band-Aid off and do that in order to experience it, to figure out if that is something that I wanted to do. It wasn't huge for the size of my list it was. So I think we're talking about 120 people signed up. I got about 30 to 40 people live on the webinar. So I wasn't expecting big things of that, but I actually made a sale live on the webinar, which was amazing. And that just boosted that confidence straight away. And it validated that, okay, what I am thinking is great is good. Other people are seeing that as well. So that was a really great buzz. And then after that, it was about a 10K launch to begin with, which I was really happy with. I was aiming for about a 5K launch for my first one. So I succeeded, that. And I just walked away from it feeling really energized and really lit up and knowing that what I'm putting out there is what people are wanting.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great result, by the way. When you think about the numbers, and as you were saying before, it's a mathematical equation. I can't quite remember what your conversion rate was, but that is a fairly high conversion rate to have like 100 plus people sign up to your webinar. And then what was the price of your course? Then
it was $997.
Yeah.
The price has increased as I've added more value to the course over time as well.
Yeah.
So that was the introductory offer.
Yeah. That's a good move for sure. Okay. So what would you say to someone who is where you were at before you launched and they're considering creating an online course and they are considering signing up to Moneymakers to learn the launching system that you learned when you worked with me?
Yeah, I think it's that you can do this first and foremost. You can go at it alone, but it's probably going to take you double, triple the amount of time. And if you're actually wanting to get results quicker, which is going to result in revenue faster, then working, doing something like Moneymakers and working with you is an absolute no-brainer in my view, because the support that you get and the systems and processes that you're going to be able to steal, they're amazing. You know, it helps fast track that growth. But not only that, there's that mindset or that accountability aspect that is really key, especially getting through your first launch as well. And the investment is going to make you money in the long run. And I think you've got to see something like this as an investment, not as a cost to your business.
Yeah, because once you learn the system, you get to repeat it whenever, however often you want.
Exactly. Yeah. And I still refer back to lessons, modules, templates, resources that you've given on every launch that I'm doing.
Yeah, I love that. So what do you think is possible for you now that you've learned this launching system and you've got this course in your business? What does the future plans look like for the e-commerce course?
Well, it's not overly exciting because I believe that, you know, the best business is one that you stick with and that you continuously work on. So I'm not ready to sort of launch any new products or anything like that. What I'm doing is I'm working on this course and improving it. I've actually just added a new module to the course by demand of the students who have been through it. So I'm constantly listening to what the students are wanting and I'm improving this current course, and I want to grow this course so that, one, the community gets stronger and stronger so that there's more of that support from peers who are going through exactly the same thing as you are. And I'm also looking at ways for them to get more access to me one-on-one, whether or not I move this into more of a mastermind type program or whether I keep it the way that it is. I'm not too sure, but there's definitely some plans on the cards, but ultimately it's just about making this even better than what it is now.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's so important. One thing I see a lot of is people doing a few launches and then they kind of think, okay, what's next? And they move on and create a new product. But the real gold and the big wins and the real revenue comes from when you stick at the same product and really grow that. So I definitely think you're on the right path there. And you mentioned before we actually started this call, you're still working one-on-one with clients, but you are looking at reducing that a little bit with this kind of scalable model.
So I'm gradually reducing the one-on-one work as I continue to grow the course launch. So rather than just cut the one-on-one altogether, but I also do really like the one-on-one because it keeps me very hands-on and fresh within the e-commerce world, right? And I never want to stay out of touch with that. I always want to be upskilling. Yes, I can do courses and other things and go to conferences, but there's nothing like being in businesses in order to stay upskilled. So yeah, I'm gradually moving away from the one-on-one, but I always have sort of one or two clients, I guess, by invitation that I'm working with, so that I can really focus on growing the course and serving those students as well.
Yeah, I love that. So where can people find you if they want to connect or find out more about you?
So the place that I hang out the most is Instagram. So that's the Ecom Marketing Cafe. Otherwise, my website is marketingcafe.online.
Cool. Anything else you want to say before we finish up this interview, Chloe?
Just that I think that if you're on the fence about working with you, get off the fence and work with you, because it was a game changer in my business. Honestly, if I hadn't have worked with you, I probably would still be sitting in front of a blank screen without a course having launched. I guess one other quick thing is around selling your course before you've actually created it. That was a massive change for me as well. I always thought that I was never going to be able to do this until I had created the perfect course and then I could sell it. But working with you, I learned that it was actually the reverse. And that is what got me moving. Is I'm going to sell this course and validate it, and then I'm going to create the modules one step ahead as the students were taking it. So I drip fed the modules, and they were doing module 3 while I was creating module 4, for example. And that working under that like little bit of pressure is what got it done.
That's right, because I remember the first time I shared with you that I recommended to pre-sell it, you were quite skeptical, weren't you?
I was so resistant, absolutely, because it felt like a lot of pressure. I had a newborn at the time. Time was already, tight, and I was afraid of failing that. What if I couldn't keep up? What if I couldn't do it? But you just do.
Yeah, once that pressure's on, you can do anything, right?
Exactly. And it's good pressure. It's not bad pressure. It's good. You need it, and it helps you take action and get your course off the ground. And once you've done that, it's done. And then it's just about launching over and over again. And I know that in time, that is where it's going to really pay off for me.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. So if anyone's listening and they think they're short of time, use Chloe as an example. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. It's been great to reconnect with you and hear your story from your perspective as well.
Amazing. Thanks for having me on. Love reconnecting with you too.
Cool. And if anyone listening is interested in joining Moneymakers, doors are open right now, and you will find the link below this episode or in the show notes. Thanks again for coming on, and I will see you in the next episode. Thanks, course creators and go-getters. You're incredible, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit subscribe in your podcast app so you don't miss an episode. If you'd like to find out more about what I offer, head across to loublakely.com. See you next time.